What I hear you saying is like, I'm not really sure. You're like, wait a second. Wait, what is it?
But I have this idea that immigrants tend to be pretty conservative, right? Would you say, like, people, what's your gut feeling, just from what you know?
What do you mean
Barbados?
conservative? Is the party shaping the president, or is the president shaping the party? Or,
Exactly.
Right?
Hang on, by the way. He's not speaking on behalf of every person in Saudi Arabia.
I'm speaking for myself only.
It's just his own opinion.
And I think most of us could agree that it's true that voting for either one or the other does not represent the nuance that we all feel and know, and even in fact agree with something on this side of the aisle versus that side of the aisle. Why do we continue, or what makes us continue to use this singular vote against each other?
So they're undocumented.
Yes.
Trump is saying we're going to round up all the undocumented people. We're going to send them back to where they came from.
And they're still gonna, they still
Maybe
want
they
Trump.
just want a free trip home. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that.
Trump's going to give us airfare.
Democratic DEIs have been very harmful, or at least somewhat harmful to Asians in the past, but they still vote Democratic. It's because the Democratic Party has aligned itself as the party for minorities.
I feel like from an international perspective, I feel like it's time to make America great again.
I just think it's pretty fascinating that I hear so many people saying the question, how could you possibly vote for that person? And how could you possibly vote for that person? As if it's about the candidates.
So if it isn't about the candidates, and let's just even say for a second that it's about conservative and liberal, right? Somebody said more progressive on the coast or in certain areas, right? Or cities. So what is it that would make someone in a city or in a coastal area more liberal, and what would make people in the other areas, the middle of the country, more conservative? Like, what do we think are the things that they think or see or encounter that would make that the case?
I don't know, like, this is a far-fetched idea, but like for coastal areas, for example, I guess it's just like, I don't know, kind of have to do with immigration, since that's where kind of immigrants come in and they tend to lean Democrat.
And what would make that? So in other words, lean liberal, if we think. But even though, can we also just say that the parties are really changing right now? So what we used to think of anyway as liberal and conservative. So what would make immigrants, for example, more liberal?
Democrats kind of hold on to that whole kind of like idea of diversity with their campaigns. So I guess that kind of brings them in, since they feel more welcome with Democratic party ideology, I guess.
So what I hear you saying is like, I'm not really sure. You're like, wait a second. Wait, what is it? Which is great, right? Like, as you start to think about it, so let's just keep thinking about it. Like, what would make people, just staying with immigrants for right now, right? Like, what would make immigrants more liberal?
Here, first off, go to the next slide. Check this out. These are foreign-born residents, citizens of the U.S., foreign-born. So the darker, look at down at the bottom on the right. So the darkest color is about 15%, and the lightest is 0%. So now go back one slide, and then go forward one slide.
So it kind of maps.
It maps a little bit. Yeah.
So this is good. Immigrants. Did you have something, Jade?
A lot of Democratic policies are more forgiving to immigrants and stuff like that, and allow more opportunities once they do get here. Like Dreamer and stuff, like those programs were often introduced by Democratic presidents or Democratic offices. So it could promote foreign-born citizens to lean Democratic, because.
So you mean they get things and from Democratic governments, so they like it?
Not necessarily get things, but they have similar opportunities to people who are born in the U.S. or on U.S. soil, where it's more unified as a country rather than that they're outcasts on United States soil.
Yeah. First off, I have to say something here. I don't think, I just have to speak. I think that's the impression by the way, that Republicans are going to take a lot of that stuff away, but I don't think that's actually what's going on. I don't think there's much of a difference between the two parties, really. There's rhetoric, but year after year after year, most things don't change very much. But,
you mean policy-wise?
Policy-wise, yeah. But that's the idea.
Go ahead.
But I have this idea that immigrants tend to be pretty conservative, right? Would you say, like, people... What's your gut feeling, just from what you know?
What do you mean
Barbados,
conservative?
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? Most immigrants don't want help, and they want, listen, no, we're here. We want an opportunity in the United States, so we don't want handouts. We don't want anything.
Can we hear from some people? You can start. Yeah.
I feel like that's really complicated. Coming from a family of immigrants, they are conservative socially. Politically, it's a bit different.
Wait, yes, what does that mean?
Yeah, so for example, I see a lot of immigrants, very religious, very conservative, values. But when it comes to political stuff, I see a lot of them lean towards Democrats just because of the policies they have. That kind of...
Like what?
Once again, their policies on diversity and equity, or immigration, and like you said, it's kind of.
But they're not expecting handouts. But they don't want handouts. Yeah. So the idea is that people come into the U.S. and their hands are out like this. Say, hey, give us stuff. But most immigrants are not wanting to be given things. The reason they're immigrants is because they have the entrepreneurial spirit. The people that want to receive things are back home. They didn't take the risk. They didn't come here. The people that come here want to make things happen. We see that over and over.
That's mixing a lot of things.
It's mixing a lot of things, but it's something that we know that's quite common, actually.
But can we just say, for purposes of this class, when we say liberal and conservative, this doesn't mean Democratic and Republican. It's not just conservative, appreciating structure, tradition, right?
Yeah.
And individual freedom and movement, right? And liberal is wanting change, thinks things could be better.
And wanting to use the government.
And wanting to use the government to support and to engineer community health and well-being, right? So those are just the big broad differences that we'll talk about when we just right today say liberal, conservative, right? Did you want to say something? Yeah.
I feel like the Democratic Party keeps a more open border, and so when foreigners come into the country, they're almost voting Democrats to be thankful for allowing them to come in.
Yeah, but listen, though, that's just with Trump and Biden and Harris, because before that, the Republicans were very supportive of the immigration change and so on, right? There really wasn't much of a difference.
But a hypothesis is you're friendlier to the people who you think are supporting you, and in this era, that might, for people coming in now, that might be Democrats, given the way they talk about it. Okay.
So my question is more on the line of why you were voting, right? Should it be because of the party or the person? And I think it should be based on the candidate, because those are the people that we are voting for. And I think if you kind of make it based solely on the party, especially what you said, party policies, they change over time. So it's very sporadic. So I think if you really want to get the candidate that you want, you should vote for that person, not the party.
So you would love to see that map just be all purple, because you don't know, because people are voting for candidates. They're not voting.
I want people to vote for a personality.
Yeah,
right?
but people really aren't, they don't seem to be doing that. They seem to be voting for their party. We support, you're from Cleveland Guardians, Penn State Nittany Lions, right? And you're going to be Nittany Lions just because you're randomly at Penn State. So people just do the party thing. Yeah. So it doesn't seem like it really much matters who the person is.
I think if we want to get better, that's something we can definitely look at, to get better at. Because they the people that are actually campaigning, those are the people that we should look at.
Yeah.
Right? Because those people at the end of the day make the party policy.
Yeah, it would seem to be the case.
Yeah, like you just said with Trump. and all these people, they're changing the party policies as time goes on. So,
and yet that's a question, right? Is the party shaping the president, or is the president shaping the party? Or,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
right.
so.
I mean, it's way more complicated than what we're saying.
We have a question from the stream.
Okay.
From Italy. For the international volunteers, how much does this election and the winner have on how much impact does this election and the winner have on your country and the rest of the world?
Is this for Nasser? I think it starts with Nasser.
Let's start with you, man. How does this matter to the Saudis? Hang on, by the way. He's not speaking on behalf of every person in Saudi Arabia.
I'm speaking for myself only.
It's just his own opinion. He's 20 years old.
I'm
right?
young. I know I look old, but
he doesn't know anything. He's an engineer. So, like, come on, give him a break. All right.
Okay. So, I'm not very political, so I don't know exactly what's the benefits on my country for each president. But from what I hear on the news, what's happening between Iran, Israel, and I think from what I hear is that Biden is very strongly with Israel. Mm-hmm. So which means that Kamala Harris is probably also the same thing as him. And we don't want war in the Middle East, so I think whichever candidate is not extra supportive of war, I'll go with him.
You want that?
And you're saying people are talking about that, like who becomes the president can very much directly impact the countries of the Middle East based on this war.
I mean, it can impact the whole world. But I'm only speaking from what I know, which is the Middle East.
So
I just want to remind you though that Trump moved the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That's pretty supportive of Israel, man.
I mean, I can say the same thing about Biden, but I'm going to stay quiet.
No, I got you. I just wanted to say that to the Trump people, so you got it.
Well, I think actually because we do want to hear from some other people who can answer this question, but I do want to say that if you study the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, you will hate things that they've done, and you will love other things that they've done. They equally, you will feel that. So I think what you're saying is there's always room for that.
How much does this matter to your country?
Where are you from?
I'm from India.
India.
Okay, so like what this guy Nasir, right? Your name is? What you brought up about war? Can we all agree there's like one president who just like, on average, is like not for war, and he's usually the one that's like the peacekeeper of the world.
Can we agree with that?
Can we agree with that? Yeah.
I don't know. Not a U.S. president?
I feel like from an international perspective, I feel like it's time to like make America great again.
Yeah. So you feel like do you feel like there's always one of the candidates who is more for peace?
No, not always, but I feel like for this election coming up, I feel like there is one particular candidate that is more for peace than the other.
All right.
So wait, but you haven't answered the question yet? The one about the impact
on your country,
on India.
Okay, for like India, it's more like it's more neutral always towards like world peace and anything that's going on in the world. So it's not like outside factors don't really like affect it. It doesn't like lean one way or towards another.
It doesn't matter then, you're saying?
Yeah, not really.
Okay.
Because India is too busy dealing with Kashmir and
Amen, brother.
Yeah. All right, I got you.
Hi. So I don't think that people are voting for the party. I just think that people are voting against the specific person. So, like for example, like Kamala supporters, they're voting against Trump. Or Trump supporters, they're voting against Kamala. Like, I think that's a common trend because a lot of Trump supporters, they talk about how they don't like Kamala, and a lot of Kamala supporters they like to talk about how much they don't like Trump. So overall, I feel like voters are not really choosing the party, but rather the candidate. So I think that's a big thing. Yeah. And so when you were talking about immigrants and why they're more likely to vote liberal, it's because they probably like Kamala and her personality better than they do as though Trump's.
But listen, no, I hear you. So there is a lot of the voting against, but can I just say that some of this has always been the case, that the red party people are voting against the blue party people, and the blue party people are voting against the red party people. So in a certain sense, it doesn't really matter who it is.
Whoever just mentioned like that way of like thinking about voting, it's one of those things where like whenever I had a discussion with friends or like just classmates about policy or like who to vote for, that kind of stuff, at some point it would always come up like, oh yeah, I mean, you're weighing one person over the other, but really you should be just going like, oh, I really don't want this person, or I'm preventing this from happening. So like the idea of preventative voting comes up, and I feel like it almost defeats the purpose of making the choice, because it's like you're choosing what change you want to see, or like what you want to have happen.
Yeah.
And instead you're going, well, I don't want this to happen. I want everything else to stay the same.
Yeah.
I feel like, too, when you look at the history of presidential elections, like they're very similar, but the history of the actual presidency is changing very rapidly. Like the seat of the president has increased in power so much because we continuously give them power. If you look at the use of executive orders since that year, and each president, they increasingly use like almost double the amount of executive orders, and they're giving themselves this significantly more power, like to enact change. So like, yes, you're voting for a party, but you're also giving them this power to just like change things on the dime.
Yeah, there's a lot. When we look at these maps, we think, how much is education level, open-mindedness part of this? That certain people in larger metropolitan areas are perceived to be more open-minded, more educated.
Those two things go together?
More progressive. Yeah, well, they don't, if you have a PhD, they don't. But in people's minds, they're perceived to be. They're perceived to go together. You get more education, you're more open-minded, you're living in a metropolitan area, you're young, you're hopping, you're like, okay, I got it, I'm progressive, I have this vision forward.
In the United States, at least, or maybe it's global, we think that if you're formally educated, you're more open-minded.
Yeah.
I think we think that, and I don't think that's true, and I'm just going to put that out there for someone to respond to.
I think it kind of factors in a good bit. I mean, if you think about like the places that typically do vote blue, it is like around like colleges, and I'm not sure if education level necessarily actually has to do with that kind of stuff, but I mean, policies for students typically do kind of lean towards blue, so maybe it's that. But I don't know, I mean, everybody can vote different ways. It just seems like education level and stuff does tend to factor into it if you just look at the maps.
Okay, I like that. But can I just tell you how it is in here? I haven't asked yet, we haven't taken a poll, but in here, generally speaking, in Social 19, year after year, 25% of the people in here are going to lean red, 25% are going to lean blue, and 50% are going to be somewhere in the middle. So at least of the people voting in here, about half of the people in this class are going to vote for Trump. And about half the people in this class are going to vote for Harris. I can predict that. We can ask after the election and see. But, this is kind of how it's going to be. So that goes with Lori Ling, what you just said. It's like, yeah.
And I think most of us could agree that it's true that voting for either one or the other does not represent the nuance that we all feel and know, and even in fact agree with something on this side of the aisle versus that side of the aisle. Why? It's a why question. But why do we continue, or what makes us continue to use this singular vote against each other? I will say, to keep us so painfully divided when we know that it's sort of like a no-win situation because we can't vote for what we really believe in, because there's no nuance. Can one of you answer that question? Like, how could we allow this to divide us when it's one or the other? And it doesn't serve any of us.
I know, like when you say it doesn't have to do with who we are as people, but I think it does, because I feel like in America, like I said before, like I feel like your political orientation really does shape people's identity here. it's like crucial to who they are as people. So I feel like that's why we always see people voting for, parties over who the candidate actually is. Just because they have already aligned themselves with certain people, certain ideology, and that voting against that would kind of be like traitorous, I guess, in a way.
Totally traitorous. Yeah.
No matter like how imperfect each side is, there's a level of imperfection that we can tolerate as people, and it's just, I feel like you're a product of your environment, and like what you can tolerate is like translates into that like political standpoint almost. And if you can see that someone can tolerate the other side's level of imperfection, you're like, well, why would you tolerate that? Or why would you like agree with that or stand for that?
For me, I think it's just because like in the way that things have evolved with like advertising or like talking to people and having outreach for voting for one person versus the other, it's become a lot more easy for everyone to just be like, I'm holier than thou, or like a little bit more righteous because I believe these things, you don't, and then it's just like a simple decider.
Even though these things that I'm believing are completely random and I don't even know what they are.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Doctors Sam and Lori for inviting us to this group. We really appreciate the hospitality. I wanted to follow up, first of all, one of the things that Sam was talking about, which was he was forecasting who's going to vote for who. Just out of curiosity, hands, how many people in this room believe that Donald Trump will be elected?
Believe he will be elected.
Believe he will be elected.
Vote for him.
Whether or not you're voting.
Put your hand up.
Huh.
Yeah. And how many of you believe that Kamala Harris will be elected in November?
So it's like the same number of people.
Wait, and the rest of you who didn't raise your hands, what are you, just not believing anything? All right. Okay. So, Frank, what's your question that you wanted to ask?
That's so crazy. What does that mean?
The question I originally had was, how has the divisive politics that we've been seeing on the road and all over the United States and demonstrations on the campuses, how has this affected your life leading up to the election in November? And has it and will it affect the way you vote?
Yeah.
The divisiveness of the election, how has that affected you and maybe the way you vote?
Does anyone want to respond to that?
Right here.
I can answer that pretty well, as my family is from Jersey. They lean a little liberal. My friends and myself lean more conservative, so I'm stuck in the middle. Do I follow my family? Do I follow my friends and what I believe? But I think it comes down to humans are creatures of habit, so they'll vote with their tribe. Wherever you're from, it's where you're going to vote for. So if you're from a conservative area, you're going to vote conservative. If you're from a liberal area, you're going to vote liberal. But again, this is why I don't think a two-party system really works, because you're channeled into two different areas, and the other people, so you make them different, which causes, it's easier to make a decision and to not think of them as smart, or you can, dismiss what they have to say. But it's stressful to pick between the two of them and the media around it. It's stressful to pick because you want to make the right decision for yourself. You want to make the right decision for your fellow man. You want to make the right decision for your family. And what one person needs are not yours, and what one person wants is not what you want. So it's a stressful choice to make, but it's an important one that everyone should, if you're able to, make. And like Sam said, how 50% are in the middle. I'm stuck in the middle too. I still don't know the right answer.
I think there's a lot of demonizing of each side. Not even just a matter of like immigrants in general. I feel like what we were talking about earlier with the immigrants leaning more towards Democrat, I think it's a lot of like demonizing on both sides too, not even just the Republicans. So that's the problem with the two-party systems. You either have to go one way to convince the other side to come vote for you. And
so Silva, how has that impacted you?
As a progressive person, I have been kind of alienated from like liberal type services. It's not necessarily like that they don't like me as a person or I don't agree with them on most of their views. People are scared more often because like you see it on both sides with people fear-mongering. Like Republicans do it with the immigrants, and then the Democrats do Project 2025, for example, for then like, oh, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. Like, it's more of this party is gonna be worse than our party. No, not to me at least. It's more of we deserve your vote because we suck less. Almost in a way.
We suck less. Hey, can we I want to show the class this slide here really fast. For those of you down in the front, what jumps out? Nasser, maybe for you. What when you look at that, what stands out?
The number of Kamala Harris supporters in the black community, maybe, because it's like the largest number. That's what pops out.
So in the black community, so many Harris supporters. Yeah. Somebody else? Yeah.
How every single like ethnic minority has a preference for like Democratic candidates, and then when you get to like white people, it's like the complete opposite.
Yeah, but not totally complete, because it's still only 50 to 43. You know.
But still.
But I'm struck by, even in the most recent, before this poll, by the way, that when Biden was running, 20% of black Americans were supporting Trump. 20%. That means 1 in 5 black Americans are going like, nah, man, I'm all about Trump. And which, this is like the stereotype that we have.
What about 39% of Hispanics?
Yeah, supporting Trump. Can somebody who's Hispanic? Anyone want to? Can you weigh in on that?
As someone who lived in South America for multiple years, it is very a conservative culture. So I guess when they immigrate to, it's just on the U.S. They kind of bring those values with them, and since the Republican Party does appeal to those like conservative like religious values, I think they tend to lean towards that.
But that's kind of different than what you were saying earlier.
It is.
Right?
It really does differ with like Hispanics compared to like black immigrants and stuff. You see like a lot more Hispanic immigrants voting Republican than you do black immigrants, which is, I can't really,
From the islands or from the continent when you talk about black immigrants?
Both, to be honest, yeah.
So less Republicans compared to what you're saying.
About the Hispanic, I do feel that a lot of Hispanic people are typically conservative, regardless of like if they're an immigrant or not. I have immigrant like friends that have their parents that are conservative and want to vote for Trump even though they're illegal immigrants. And I think it's just because they believe that the Republican Party follows a lot more of their morals than the Democratic Party would. So that might be part of it.
Wait, so they're undocumented.
Yes.
Trump is saying we're going to round up all the undocumented people. We're going to send them back to where they came from.
And they're still going to, they still
Maybe
want
they
Trump.
just want a free trip home. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that.
Trump's going to give us airfare.
Maybe.
Okay. Hey.
Okay, wait, Sam, there's
go
right
ahead.
here.
Yeah, I was kind of going to say the same thing. It's like the whole rhetoric around Trump and his immigration policy. Like his last campaign was literally trying to build a wall. And to see that shocked me, right? Like just from the media that I consume.
Which number shocked you?
The Hispanic, 39.
Okay.
For Trump. Yeah, I didn't expect that.
So what do you make of it?
Like, am I being reported false news?
But if it's true,
it fake news? I don't know. What?
If it's true, if it's true, because that's
if it's true.
Yeah, if it's true, what do you make of it?
I guess like Hispanics are like secretly for Trump. That's the
secretly.
best. Because from what I see, it's like kind of like how you see black people, right? It's like, oh, they're going to be more aligned with liberal ideas, right? They're going to probably vote that direction. I didn't expect that. That shocked me. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
Here, right? Go ahead, bro.
Let me grab.
I feel like among minorities, there's a general societal expectation to vote Democratic. And you can see that in the candidates. Like, who do we have? Or like Kamala, we have a half black, half Indian lady running for president. And then for Republicans, an old white man. And
so the expectation is that people of color.
Yes. And it doesn't make sense, because if you actually look at it, let's look at black people. A lot of them are religious, a lot of them are poor. This is what you would expect for a white supporter of Trump, not a black supporter of Kamala. And even for, say, you look at the Hispanics and the Asians, especially Asians actually, Democratic DEIs have been very harmful, or at least somewhat harmful to Asians in the past, but they still vote Democratic. It's because the Democratic Party has aligned itself as the party for minorities. So I mean, like, what does it mean if you're a minority and you're not in the tribe of minorities? That means you're whitewashed.
No, we had the conversation a couple weeks ago about how the struggles that Chinese and Korean students have, it's like getting into really elite institutions, but even when they score super high on exams and stuff.
You're expected to protect your color, your race.
Yeah.
So if you're Republican, then I guess you're not a part of your race.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Yeah. Huh.
I'll just mention something real quick. I'm Hispanic, and just a little secret into the South American and Hispanic community. They're actually a lot more racist than you would think. I'm being serious. I'm being serious. You would ask people from South America flat out, "Are you racist?" And they will say yes. So
what do they mean when they say?
They are for Trump because they agree with his rhetoric. So they don't like. You can ask someone from Mexican, they're like, "Oh yeah, get the Mexicans out of here," even though they're Mexican themselves.
Yeah. No, we tend to see that. By the way, I don't think you were equating Trump's rhetoric with Trump's racism. That's like two separate things, right?
Well, Trump
rhetoric
says
is
a lot
one thing.
Yeah, well, Trump says a lot of racist things.
He says things that could easily be construed they could be construed in many, many different ways, and racist is one of them.
Yeah, but they a lot of Hispanics are more racist than they would like to even admit for themselves.
All right.